Today on the LA Food Podcast, while the president was spewing nonsense about the so-called Golden Age of America, Father Saul and I were experiencing a real one in Santa Monica. The golden age of fine dining in Los Angeles, that is. That's right, dear listener, we visited Dave Beran's SELINE for the first time, and my God, do we have a tale to tell, and I'm not just referring to how gastrointestinal malpractice in Santa Monica PD almost derailed our evening. What did we think? How does it stack up to other LA beacons of fine dining like Vespertine and Cato? And most importantly, is it worth your time and dollars? Listen to find out. Because we love you, we also find time to unpack a moderately doom and gloomy report on the restaurant industry published by the James Beard Foundation. And in Chef's Kiss Big Miss, there's the nighttime debut of Squirrel, the restaurant monologue apocalypse, and the dethroning of pizza as the nation's most popular food. In part 2, an interview with the founders of MVA.Wine, a new venture aiming to disrupt the tired wine club industry. Founder Laurent Verns has a fascinating story from selling a successful hotel curation website to going all in on his passion for wine. And what they're creating is unique and special for a variety of reasons, including the fact that membership is capped to 600 people, period. Why that number? Well, you'll have to listen to find out. A reminder that the LA Food Podcast is part of the Acquired Taste Media family. Please be sure to listen to our sister podcast, Taqueando with Bill Esparza. This week, Bill and producer Rob unpacked the ins and outs of carne asada. You think you know it, you don't, and Bill has all the info. That's now streaming everywhere. As always, I'm your host, Lucas Servodio, and without further ado, it's time to chow down. Welcoming back to the LA Food Podcast, a man who began this podcast as a boy, but now is finally becoming a man. Saul, what kind of energy are you going to bring to your final podcast as a bachelor?
Ooh, is it chaotic energy? Should I be chaotic? I feel like I'm past that. I'm grown.
You are.
I mean, this is coming out Friday morning. By the time people are basically listening, it's a done deal. I feel I gotta act right. Gotta act the part.
Yeah, you'll be a married man at that point. I mean, you've been acting like a married man for several years now, but I do think the listeners will detect a noticeable shift in your aura post Friday.
It would be so funny if after this Emily left me at the altar. Ultimate shitty Yelp review, best shitty Yelp review of all time, right there. So at least that's a silver lining.
Yeah. Silver lining is one way to look at it. Well, dear listener, please be sure to send Father Saul your congratulations. And actually, speaking of sending us your congratulations, we're going to do something that we did for the first time last episode, which is read our recent reviews, which people did. It turns out that reading out reviews incentivizes people to leave them. Would you believe it, Saul?
I kind of don't. But it was very nice. Cool. It was cool to see. I like the reviews.
Yeah. And honestly, I'm going to give you a challenge after we read these, dear listener. So hang with us for a sec. Okay. The first one, you want to start? You always want to start with the bad news, not the good one, right?
Yes. Okay.
And bad is relative. It's more so, a sort of negative in tone one as opposed to like a bad one about us. But this was a comment on our Spotify feed by friend of the pod, Daniel J. Wargo, also known as Forking Around. He says, in regards to your comments about why people are so divisive about pizza, my theory, and I mean this with the deepest love and respect in my heart, which is always something you say before you're about to unleash hell, is that pizza lovers in general have the biggest egos and think they're the only ones who are right. Another word for this would be assholes. Saul, what do you think of Forking Around's take?
First of all, Daniel, thank you for commenting. That's very nice of you to go out of your way to do so. There might be something to that. Well, my question is, fine dining people are also assholes, right? We might know about that from other podcasts in the city.
Don't know what you're talking about.
What makes it so that pizza, a humble food, attracts assholes from like the humble pizza that matches sort of the level of the fine dining snob?
It's a good question. It's what we talked about, right? It's like the fact that everybody knows pizza.
Everyone's an expert.
You know who actually got in the comments on our post on Instagram was Chris Bianco himself.
Oh, no way.
Yes, the sexiest man in pizza actually had another theory to offer about this, and that was this. He said, It was a long. He's a pretty verbose guy. He says the best anything is the anything you like best. Until any society agrees on what makes good things good, personal takes, the good, the bad, and the ugly are mostly just personal opinion. When we replace best lists with personal favorites, it can ultimately get people to trust themselves and their own criteria for greatness. He's that's just like 1/3 of the comment, but he's basically saying, in other words, and this is how he ends the comment, fuck what I think, what do you think? He is in favor of like everybody being able to have an opinion in this day and age, and I think there's something to that. And I think pizza engages those opinions.
I think so. And by the way, we didn't say it was necessarily a bad thing. I might have intimated it. Bad thing that everyone has an opinion. It just is. It was like, why do they? And who cares? Let the people speak.
But Daniel, I think you're right. Pizza people are assholes, and I can say that as a pizza person. Thanks for the comment. And now to the good one. Okay, this one is honestly like so nice. I'm not going to beat the charges of having paid people to leave these. The title is Amazing Podcasts with Amazing People. It's by OC Girl Loves LA. And it says, I don't actually live in LA, OC Girl here, and I'm not actually able to visit most of the restaurants Luca highlights. However, I do love learning about chefs, cooking, LA food, and media issues that Luca covers in his pod. His interviews are professional, well-researched, and insightful, but also casual enough that you feel like you are there for them. Now you get involved, Saul. Similarly, his co-hosts Saul and Karen both offer different perspectives on LA. Karen, being a writer, offers a unique insider's view of LA food, and Saul's chemistry with Luca as his lifelong friend truly makes his episodes special. Saul, you're special. How does that make you feel?
It makes me feel uncomfortable a little bit. I would ask the listeners, if we're going to do this, leave slightly meaner reviews. Like, give us a neg or two. Leave a 5-star if you like. 5 stars if you're up for it. Totally fine. You don't have to be nice. I felt like uncomfortable with how nice this review was. This person, by the way, in their comments said they listened every morning, and that made me suspicious. Because we come out once a week.
There's multiple, she could be in the back catalogs. She could also be like, like re-listening, which is encouraged.
I mean, look, we got true sickos for the pod. That's great. But no, I don't need this. I don't need full positivity compliments. We need to balance this out a little bit with different energy.
Yeah.
Constructive feedback. Let's hear it.
Yeah. No, in fact, my challenge for you listeners is to continue leaving us reviews and comments. Make them as unhinged as possible. Like, honestly, like, give us insanely critical feedback. Make fun of me. I have a mustache right now. I am low-hanging fruit for making fun of, okay? Make fun of us. Give us 5 stars, but make fun of us, and we will read it out. And we'll make every intro to the pod almost like a roast of Saul and Luca.
Don't be fooled, listeners. Luca has a humiliation kink. This will make him very happy. He can't wait.
No one is fooled by that, or surprised, I should say. Look, before we get to recent eats, and we're really just going to do one recent eat because it was a massive one, but we have a big announcement to make. So, Saul, there's a TV show that you and I both like coming back to the air soon. What is it again?
Top Chef, baby.
That's right. What is it, March 9th?
I think so. Yeah. Was it March 9th? Yeah, March 9th, March 4th?
Disappointed.
No, March 9th.
Disappointed that you don't actually.
It's on when it's on. I don't watch live TV anymore. It'll be on Peacock when I need it.
Okay, Gen Alpha King. Basically, as you know, dear listener, we have in the past talked about Top Chef. We've done drafts. We've done like mid-season check-ins. We've done, post-finale recaps. And when we started this podcast, I won't say that made sense, but, it made more sense maybe than it does now when it's so heavily focused on LA food. However, we still love talking about Top Chef. We still love talking about food TV in general. There's, Padma is coming out with a new show that threatens to take Top Chef's crown. Obviously, The Bear will be back for season 5. Gordon Ramsay has a fucking reality show. Have you seen it yet, Saul?
No, I don't plan to. But hey, let's not forget Next Gen Chef with Andrew Sargent. First-time winner on Netflix. Let's not forget Culinary Class Wars, one of the greatest new food shows on the planet.
That I have not seen. Point being, we still want to be able to talk about these shows without, bothering the listeners who don't actually like to talk about food TV. So what we're doing is we are going to be launching basically like a second podcast, you might call it. It's going to be called Couch Potatoes, but it won't be on a separate feed. It's going to be on this LA Food Pod feed. So you can basically expect to get, like, from time to time, multiple episodes on this feed per week. You'll always get the LA Food Pod on Fridays, but every once in a while you'll see a sneaky Couch Potatoes episode show up. Sometimes it'll be about Top Chef. Sometimes it might be about The Bear. Maybe it'll be about a food movie that comes out. Maybe it'll be, you know, something weird that Saul saw on his weird internet searches. Whatever it may be, we will talk about it on the Couch Potatoes episodes of this feed. Saul, did I capture that correctly?
I think you did. Yeah, I'm excited. I also really regret when you said new shows coming out that we're excited about that I didn't say the State of the Union address. That would have been funny. I would have liked that.
That would have been. That show came out.
But Top Chef is the correct answer. It came out. Yeah, we're late to it.
That show came, it went, and yeah. So we're going to be kicking this off with our Top Chef draft in the next couple of weeks or week, hopefully, if we're able to get to it. But if that's something that you're into, please mark your calendar, dear listener. Now, without further ado, we're going to get to a pretty epic recent eat. So you and I had the chance to go dine at one of LA's most probably ambitious restaurants, it's fair to say. Just last night, we had the tasting menu at SELINE in Santa Monica. Dave Beran's SELINE. I've been to Pajoli in the past. Dave Beran has been a guest on this podcast, but it was both of our first times going to SELINE. So, how excited were you beforehand? And do you want to tell the listeners about how you almost fucked it up?
How did I almost fuck it up? I was very excited going in. I will say, and this was kind of my theme of last year. Last year, I ate like whatever it was, 20 plus Michelin stars total, right? I had all these like fancy dinners. And by the end, yes, we had a couple very special nights. We had our Vespertine night, we had Cato. But on the whole, I was kind of jaded, I'd say, with the Michelin-star or like high fine dining experience. And
you were kind of like Drake going to the club looking sad in a corner. You know, like it's so hard to be famous.
How dare you compare me to Drake? But also, you're not wrong. I think that's a little bit fair. And so I was excited to try Celine, but knowing Dave Beran's like Pajoli background and so on, I was like mildly excited. I wasn't like amped like I was his Vespertine, but I was looking forward to it. Really. Oh, and I did almost mess it up. You're right.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So we were very excited to go. And yes, to be clear, I was excited the day of, so much so that I decided that I was not going to eat until dinner. I was going to fast. And then it was 4 p.m. and I still had a bunch of work to do, and I was really hungry and I couldn't think, and I ate an entire chicken quesadilla and 2 tacos right before dinner. and I was like, I really fucked this up. This is a real failure of the marshmallow test, you could say.
What is the marshmallow test?
You never heard of the marshmallow test?
Is that where you can see how many marshmallows you put in your mouth?
That's your marshmallow test. No, the marshmallow test is when they like put a marshmallow in front of like a toddler and say, if you don't eat that marshmallow, you get 2, and then the adult leaves to leave the room, and it's kind of like a willpower test, right? Can they like, will they eat it? Can they like anticipate future benefit, etc.? I fail it over and over again in my life. That being said, we go to SELINE for their winter seasonal tasting menu, and I gotta say, my headline bud is like, that restaurant made me fall in love with the experience of doing fine dining again.
Wow,
like I was full going in. I was happily, painfully full by the end. And I think I was actually pretty moved throughout the meal in ways that we can get into.
So I wasn't full going into the meal, but I came in shook, okay? Because I was running a little bit late. I was looking for parking, and I was driving down Main Street, and I did a little illegal U-turn on Main Street. And I didn't know this, but behind me was a nice Santa Monica Police Department SUV. I can't say for certain whether they saw me or not, whether they, clocked me or not. I think I saw their headlights going off. I'm not 100% sure. All I know is that I made it into the garage without getting caught. But I kept asking Saul when I saw him, do you think they're going to find me?
You were more shook up than I gave credit for, because I was really not that concerned. Also, I was so full that I couldn't really think. But it's really funny that you're doxing yourself here now. Just for folks who want to know, Luca's license plate number is XCR9. No, but you were legitimately worried about this. Yeah,
I'm still worried. I'm still concerned about what might happen. I just figured, let's put it out in the ether, and let's put it out there on record that it was an accident. I was not on purpose trying to evade the police. I waited for a sec around the corner. They didn't come, so I parked and went to dinner, and that's what I did.
I feel like you shouldn't be saying this, for the record.
We take risks on this podcast, okay? Let's talk a little bit about the setting, okay? So For those who aren't familiar, Celine is like the follow-up project from Dave Beran to Pajoli. And when I interviewed Chef Dave, it was clear that he was a little disappointed with how the reception around Celine had gone. So his whole thing is they hadn't really been able to do a lot of marketing around it when it launched because it was launching right around the fire, so it felt wrong to actually do that. And then, in his own words, it kind of took them a while to find their footing. And by the time they were starting to find their footing, the Michelin inspectors had maybe already come, and they missed out on getting a Michelin-star or any sort of Michelin recognition, I think, for their first year in business. Chef Dave is a very competitive person. He runs marathons. He's got like sort of an athletic mindset. He played very competitive hockey growing up. Needless to say, he basically took this snub personally, and he's really doubled down to figure out how can he make Celine one of the best restaurants in the city. So that is the context, okay? Now, when you're walking into the restaurant, it's a very unique way to enter the restaurant.
Well, basically, you're on Main Street Santa Monica. You're in sort of a mixed use complex with stores and stuff, and then there's these like really like an impressive set of 2 black gates that lead you into what feel like a courtyard or a backyard. Like kind of space. It's quiet. It's beautiful. Vines growing on the features outside. You're welcomed in by the host to this beautiful dark but like warm and homey, like chateau cabin feel, and like that's I don't know, that was just what's evoked. And yes, it was the winter menu, so that was almost in mind already. But you enter this place that's like elegant, and it's comforting and exciting at the same time, if that makes sense.
It's not over the top.
No, yeah, no.
When we walked into Addison, it felt like I was walking into like some really impersonal ballroom. And on the flip side, when you walk into Vespertine or Meteora, it feels like you're walking into like a production, like a play or something. Like you are literally entering a different universe. Celine is very intentionally designed to feel like Chef Dave Beran's like grandmother's house, basically, where you enter through the garden and you enter into the kitchen. You literally enter into the kitchen. And then you go through the kitchen to the dining room. So it feels very homey. And the kitchen, by the way, is like, it's immaculate, but it's warm feeling. It feels like a home. And in the back, there's like a bookshelf and shit. So like, it does not feel like other fine dining restaurants you've been to straight off the bat.
It feels more welcoming like that, right? It feels more like a friend's place, right? Or a friend's experience.
And so what they're doing is they're rotating their menu every once in a while, or they're rotating the menu seasonally, I should say. But this one had a very interesting theme. It was sort of like a 2-part thing that was supposed to evoke winter, and it was split into 2 different sections. The first was outside, like the outside of what happens in winter, like, you know, the cold and the ice and all that stuff. And then the second half is like the inside, like the inner part of winter, which is the things that we do to seek comfort during winter, like to seek warmth. So right off the bat, pretty strong concept, I thought.
I have never had a meal that's evoked more personal memory throughout.
Wow.
So having grown up on the East Coast and having snow every year, and like having the experience of like either hiking outside in the snow, walking outside, or playing and doing whatever, and having the taste of snow in your mouth, seeing the trees outside bare with the leaves gone, and then coming back inside and having some hot cocoa and curling up by the fire and having like a cozy meal. This evoked that to such a profound level that I was like, basically half the meal I was like not listening to you and just kind of going through those memories and reliving them, because it evoked them so strongly, and both the obviously the creation and flavor and execution of the dishes, and also the way they're presented and explained. When we spoke about Addison, something that you said or were really caught up on was the fact that you couldn't connect to the concept or idea or story of the meal at all.
Yeah.
And I told you at the time, and I do generally feel this way, that like a restaurant doesn't need a concept, doesn't need a story, right? Like the food is good, whatever you do it.
I agree.
This is, I think, the strongest example that I can recall of a restaurant having a story that I can feel connected to, and that makes me like, that really elevates the enjoyment of the meal. I went to the Alinea pop-up when it was at the Mayborn, and like Alinea is like, I mean, Chef Dave Beran comes from Alinea and Next, and like has that kind of like story and theatricality background.
Yeah.
The experience I had at Alinea, a story but really disconnected in a way that I couldn't, like, they were like trying to do too much, and of course there's a pop-up and there's a lot, but this was like personal and clear and then delivered. And it's the first time I've ever really thought like, oh, I kind of want my restaurants to have a story to tell, like because
I think I know why it felt that
Mhm.
way though, because during dinner, Dave said something to the extent like Dave said something that was like Chef Beran, I should say. We're not tight like that, but he was saying when SELINE opened, he didn't want to do the whole like storytelling thing because he's always been known as the
Right.
storytelling chef, and he kind of wanted to like break away from that a little bit. So he just got into the space and wanted to focus on seasonality and kind of wanted just the food to be whatever it wanted to be. But as the concept evolved, he kind of kept gravitating towards there is a story here. There is a story unfolding here. And he just leaned into like re-becoming that storytelling chef. And I think the reason you connected with it, Saul, and I think it's the reason I connected with it too, is because it felt authentic. Like it felt real.
Yeah.
Like that meal was an actual story being told by him. And that is who he is. He is a storyteller. He's not just a chef.
hmm I totally agree, and like and even more to it because they're changing the menu. Actually, it's like pretty to do a seasonal menu is a pretty rapid shift. Now I know it's not like a full necessarily a huge entire transformation, but I imagine between winter and spring and summer in particular, like those are pretty big changes. The level of intentionality behind everything, and the level of thought, and I'm talking about food right now in a way that I kind of makes me roll my eyes and hate myself.
yeah.
But also like this is how I felt eating it. Everything from the music, right? He talked us through
music.
the choice in music and why they felt there needed to be a piano playing in the background to simulate the feeling of things dropping because things drop in winter, right?
Falling, yeah.
Things falling, and it just like everything kind of cohered in this really awesome way, while at the same time the service being light, friendly,
Yeah.
and welcoming. It
Yeah.
wasn't like some heavy like love Vespertine. We loved our experiences there, and same thing at Addison, right? Where like the formality of the service to match the formality of the Michelin-star / starred experience you're having almost makes it feel less personal, right?
It does.
Whereas the service throughout at SELINE reflected that feeling of being at your grandma's cabin or your friend's place, right? You're in your friend's kitchen,
Yeah.
and the balance of those two things, the ambition and intention behind the food with the warmth and excellence of the service, made this, like I said, I was not in a rush to go back to a fine dining experience. Like we have places we got to go, like Providence and Restaurant Key, to like make sure we go and experience these things in LA. But like I have not been in a rush back. This made me more excited about fine dining than anything since our meals since at Vespertine, right? Like to me, like this kicks off a very similar feeling, like a very different experience in some ways, but in a way that makes you just as connected as and excited about the food in the city.
Yeah, 100%. I couldn't agree more. Now let's talk a little bit about the food. So as we mentioned, we already mentioned that it was a two-part menu. You have the first part that is evocative of the outdoor. Every dish comes to the table. It's like it is monochromatic. They're all like white dishes, but within that is a lot of like rich depth of flavors that you're not usually having elsewhere in places that aren't focused on hyper seasonality. A lot of dishes with sunflower seeds and sunflowers and sunchokes and celery root, etc., etc. And then in the middle of the dinner, you're asked to stand up and go to the kitchen where they basically do this like little performance art project where they take a mustard leaf, they dip it in a passion fruit solution or something, and then they dip that into liquid nitrogen, which freezes everything together. They sprinkle it with a little snow, which I've already forgotten what the snow was.
Ginger sugar.
Ginger sugar. Well done, Saul. Oh, yeah. That is. They told us about how they made that. And then you chomp on it, and it like shocks your system, and then you're back to the table for the second part of the menu, which is really cozy, delicious, yummy food, which feels like insulting to call it that. But it's supposed to be more familiar in that it actually follows a French progression. It's soup, followed by, a fish, followed by a red meat, then followed by a braised meat. And that is intentional to evoke that familiarity. So in all the dishes, because we don't have time to go through all of them, which ones really stood out for you?
A couple of things. One, a really fun aspect of the menu was the use of the same ingredient transformed multiple times across multiple dishes, and they did this in the first half with a section they called the second, with what you thought was a multi-course cod dish, but secretly was a multi-course sunflower seed dish in the middle with a black cod, and then and like really striking and like cool presentations, right? Cod skeleton, like the skeleton of the cod, and this delicious one bite of like cracker made of sunchoke, right? So there's I will say one, it's hard to choose from all the dishes, but those kind of dynamics between them I really liked. The one that stood out was a dish served with a little piece of preserved cherry pistachio, essentially candy, on an antler, and then a bowl with celery root draped over venison tartare and granola, savory granola mixed in. And the idea is that you take the bite of the like preserved cherry and pistachio candy, let it coat your mouth, and then take a bite of the venison tartare with celery root, and let those flavors intermingle. And dude, I literally started laughing, of happiness eating. I've never experienced something that tasted that like fun and cool, and that was such a good time to eat.
Yeah,
right. Like literally, that was like my favorite bite of food that I can remember having for the last year. Like since Vespertine, that like I'm just gonna remember that. Super special.
Yeah, I think that was also one of my favorite dishes. The dish I wish I was hungrier for because it came at the end of the meal. It was kind of a showstopper. It was the short rib, which he said was designed to sort of be like the sticky bits at the end of a pot roast, which, again, very personal story for him. He would like spend a lot of time with his grandparents and would do the dishes, and he'd, sort of like snack on the little bits of pot roast left in the pot. That was served with a deep fried brioche. It was deep fried in beef tallow, and you were encouraged to make little sliders. Am I just like a slut for sliders? Is that what it comes down to?
Who isn't, bro? Who isn't?
Yeah. I mean, okay. Can I tell you about a couple of the dishes that I was a little underwhelmed by?
Okay.
You're not happy.
I'm curious. I only have one.
Oh, okay. There were two. One was the leaf that was frozen in liquid nitrogen. And the reason for that is, when you're talking about restaurants that are trying to get a Michelin star, one of the things that everybody says about Michelin chasing restaurants is that you need to like move your diner around. You need to like have them do like, I don't know, tea or drink somewhere, then appetizer somewhere else. Like think about Vespertine, you literally
do they?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Vespertine they do. At Addison they didn't do that.
At Addison they didn't do that, but Addison sucks and we have been over this. No, I'm just kidding.
Wow, Jesus
no,
Christ.
Just kidding. But it is something that like is in vogue, like to do for Michelin. Is like that's what I've heard. And so I feel, not that I'm a Michelin inspector or anything, but I felt like that was it was fun to get up. It was fun to see something different, but I'm not sure that really hit in a way that added much to my culinary experience, if that makes sense.
I somewhat understand. I thought it was fun. I had a good time with it, and also I really liked, because this is at the turn of the meal between outside and inside, that gave you the feeling of having the dipped in nitrogen and having it evoke like a fallen frozen leaf, like a red oak leaf almost on the ground.
Yeah,
I thought was cool.
No, that was one where I agree, but I think that the story outweighed the actual delivery of the flavor.
Maybe, but it was fun to be like, oh, I'm going back to my table, about to have this delicious mushroom tea, which is hearty mushroom broth that smells like hot chocolate somehow impossibly. And right before I do that, I have this thing that makes me feel like I've just been breathing in cold, frigid, and brisk air. I liked that dynamic.
So that was my other dish, actually, that I was going to talk about, because
what
I was so impressed with the way it smelled.
Oh yeah,
because it comes to your table, and to your point, it smells like hot chocolate, but it is literally mushroom broth.
Yeah, it's genius.
But the disconnect was when I actually tasted it. I don't know. I just wasn't blown away by the overall mushroom broth. I kind of felt like compared to everything else we had, that was one of the more one-note dishes we had. That's all.
I disagree. I mean, playing with aroma like that is just not something I've seen very much in these high-end fine dining restaurants. It's a really fun idea. And again, maybe I'm caught up in concept and story, but like I think it's to me spoke to the success of and the thought put behind the menu and the dishes in it. That was a delight. To have that brisk cold leaf into a warm mushroom broth. Like, I
loved it conceptually. I even had fun experiencing it, but flavor-wise, it didn't do anything for me. That's all.
Whatever, man. I'm looking at the menu right now. The Dungeness crab dish with the crispy thin potato chips on top.
That was special.
It tasted like a crab with like mashed potato almost. It's so
Pine
rich
nuts.
and buttery.
Yeah, it was.
Oh my!
That was a perfect
God,
dish.
it was like, let me put it this way. I mean, we can wrap up, I think, pretty soon here, but like Celine, I immediately cannot wait to go back for every other season.
Yeah.
Like I can't wait. Like I want to go there every 4-6 months and see how they're continuing to transform and interpret the restaurant and see what other ideas they put forward. Like this is most fine dining places. Like we went to Vespertine a year ago. We were like, I want to, when I go back to Vespertine, it'll be to like take other people from out of town, right? I could go back to Vespertine for myself every 6 months.
You mean
if
Celine?
not more. So what did I say? Did I say Vespertine?
You said Vespertine.
No, Celine. I could go back to Celine every 6 months because they're being so dynamic and thoughtful with the food they're serving and the story that they're telling that I believe it'll be I just want to see how much of a different experience it is each time.
I want to see how they make it feel different because
Yeah.
it felt so wintry in there, and it had to do with the music and
The bathroom decor, even in some ways, right? Like everything kind of fed into it.
yeah. No, I mean, look, the sort of closing question I want to have for you is obviously we've talked a lot about Vespertine, we've talked about Meteora, we've talked about Addison, we've talked about Cato. Where does this sit in the pantheon of great LA dining destinations that people should consider for like a very special night out? Because it's not cheap. Like I just looked at how much it costs. It's like $295 per guest, and that's before the pairings. We didn't even talk about the pairings, but we got the hybrid pairing, which unreal, absolutely unreal.
Oh my gosh. I'm just like really into NA pairings now.
Yeah.
I love the NA, like every single, I mean, the wines were great too, but to me, I'm just like so blown away by NA pairings these days.
Yeah.
And some of the teas and juices and what was it?
Milk punch.
Milk punch. Oh my God. I could just chug that. Anyway, where does it sit in the pantheon? So first of all, this restaurant, I obviously didn't get to visit it within the first 6 months of it being open, or first essentially year of it being open. So I don't know what experience any Michelin judges may have had with it. It is a joke this restaurant doesn't have a star.
I agree.
Like, I don't really give a shit about Michelin like that anymore in life. Like I don't. But if we're just talking being real, it's a joke. This doesn't have a star. It probably is closer to 2, in my opinion.
I agree.
Based on the meal we had last night. To me, it sits right alongside Cato and Vespertine, with the only caveat being that it's newer.
Yeah.
And I want to see how they continue to do it. So I maybe give them like a half notch below, but I put it above Meteora for sure. And it like, it will join the ranks of Michelin-starred LA restaurants. Like there's no reason why it shouldn't.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's a stretch to say like this one has real potential to like go up the ranks. They're also like building out their garden where they're growing passion fruit. Like if they continue building stuff like that out, I mean, 2 stars for sure. But I think that their sites their sky's the limit here. I think
sky's the limit. Yeah, sky's the limit. This is a very cool one.
I think I mentioned this last night, but the thing that really sticks out to me about this is the fact that we just have so many incredible fucking chefs who are descending on LA. It feels like, we are in Paris during the Enlightenment when all these philosophers were coming to one place to be in the same place and like sort of feed off each other's ideas. We have chefs like Jordan Kahn, like John Yao, like Dave Beran, like Michael Cimarusti, who we never mentioned on this podcast.
Citron, bro.
Like Joseph Centeno, right?
Yeah.
Like so many different chefs who are at the top of their game in a way that I don't think LA has ever had before.
I think that might be, I mean, I think fine dining came to LA more so in the last 10 to 15 years, right? And so like a lot of the chefs that you mentioned have been around, John. I mean, are either of LA or have been in LA for a long time. But yeah, it does. I mean, I think it does maybe feel like a little bit of a moment right now.
It's a moment. LA is a fine dining city. Here we are. Everybody, I mean,
go to Celine. Go eat at Celine.
Yeah, wholeheartedly recommend. Anyways, we'll be going back probably to check out, if not the spring menu, definitely the summer menu, because I want to see how they transform it. Look, before we get to Chef's Kiss Big Miss today, there's an industry report that caught my eye that I want to pick your brain on, Saul, because we are an industry-friendly podcast here. We like to support the industry, and it was actually the James Beard Foundation's 2026 Independent Restaurant Industry Report, which was produced with Deloitte. So it's like a legit report. It was a national survey of more than 380 independent restaurant owners, chefs, and operators across 47 states. They also had in-depth conversations with more than 40 chefs around the country. This isn't punditry or trend forecasting like we do. It's actual operators describing what they're actually living through. Now, I wanted to talk to you about this And I don't want to go through every single finding because I think the most surprising thing to me was how unsurprising I found a lot of the findings. Like they were things that we've been talking about for the better part of a year. And also our friends at New School, the people who put on Family Meal, they released a report that sort of recapped 2025, and it found a lot of the same things. It's things like volatility is now kind of the new norm. It's not just like we're going to recover into like a more stable restaurant environment. Like volatility is the norm. Things like alcohol consumption being down, customer behavior changing in terms of spending. Even Ozempic was something that that New School also found. But there were a couple of interesting findings here, and I wanted to ask you first, what did you find of interest?
Well, I mean, I think I agree. The purpose of a report like this isn't necessarily to unearth new things. I think it's to confirm what we are experiencing and hearing anecdotally, right? So there's a reason why a lot of the report back from the surveys and interviews with restaurateurs echo things that we feel like we've already heard, and that's because I think to the credit of food media coverage and food media storytelling is capturing many of the trends. This just formalizes the findings in some way. I don't know if I would identify a lot of this as surprise. It was interesting to hear about the pricing changes, right?
Yes.
As restaurants raise prices, there's sort of a sweet spot. Those that go above 10% actually see a reduction in business, but those that keep it within like 5 to 10% or something like that are able to turn up the dial on prices while not sacrificing customers and getting that a bit more revenue. It's interesting to learn about where that balance lies.
Yeah.
It's interesting to hear about delivery and online ordering trade-offs, that like 13% of operators that use delivery integrations reported poor or very poor performance compared with 5% among those who did not. And I don't know exactly what poor performance means there.
Yeah.
Is that performance of like the restaurant or whatever? But like, I think it is. They're saying our restaurants performing poorly as they have, delivery integrations. That's a bit of a surprise. Some of the things are kind of just like truisms, like volatility is a new norm and there's an underlying shift in the industry. I will say the other one that, like, again, is not a surprise, but it's interesting to see confirmed, is the idea that consumers are spending less when they go out.
Yeah.
And how consumer tastes, like the reduction in alcohol consumption and the use of GLP-1s, are impacting the table. Because these, I think, are trends that are here to stay for at least a while.
Yeah.
And those fundamental shifts in how consumers spend money at restaurants, I think, is a really interesting thing.
To that point, I also thought it was interesting, the finding that customer volume doesn't necessarily mean a restaurant is financially healthy. Like a lot of restaurants report that their customer traffic appears to be stabilizing after some tough years. A lot of the nights their restaurants are full, yet that hasn't necessarily correlated with their restaurants being profitable or doing well even. In fact, restaurants have had to close even though they're full every single night. Feels like there's something fundamentally broken.
That I mean, those two findings go together, though, right? The customers may be going out more, which is a good sign, but they seem to be spending less, and particularly spending less on alcohol.
Have you noticed this? Like, one of the findings to that point is like people ordering less shit when they go out, like less stuff. Like they're ordering smaller, maybe just an appetizer or something, and then going. Have you noticed this?
So I haven't, because I only go out when I'm going hard, bro. That's why. Like I don't go out and just get an appetizer, really. Although actually, no, I shouldn't say that, because basically in work context, like my most normie eating out is with work, right?
Yeah.
It's like going out with like whatever colleagues. And in that context, I think generally, yes, though again, work eating is always weird and uncomfortable. I don't like doing it. But like I do think I've either heard and observed people kind of talking about like, oh, I just order an appetizer, I don't get an entree, right? An appetizer or two, I don't like go big, right? I think people are overall drinking alcohol less, right? And that's a key margin driver.
Yeah.
I do think just the way people approach eating out. And I do wonder how stuff like the explosion of shareables, right? And like almost tapa style restaurant has taught consumers to eat differently, right? Because instead of everyone getting their own entree and appetizer, now we're all sharing, right? And because of the dynamics there, I think restaurants may have unintentionally taught consumers to eat differently.
Yeah.
Instead of each of us getting our own entree, let's just get one shareable. We're not that hungry, right?
Well, there was a famous TikTok clip going around recently of a guy who's like, here's what you're going to do next time you go out to eat in Los Angeles. You are going to eat dinner before you go out. You are just going to eat dinner before you go out, because when you go out, it's going to be shareable plates where you're just going to be spooning like an eighth of a piece of cod onto your plate, and you're going to leave hungry. So you're going to eat a full meal before you go out. People made fun of that, but there's something to that.
There is 100%. There is. I think. I mean, like, again, and I don't know what I assume the benefit of a shareable plate to a restaurant is that you don't have to deliver as much food for what the customer is paying for, because it's more like instead of two big plates for people or two medium-sized plates, you do one medium-sized plate that they can both share. There must be some like economic advantage to that. But I do think the unintended consequence has been that people have learned to eat differently, and instead of getting their own entrees and eating a la carte like that, they like strategize in this way. This is also why something like what Firstborn did to creating prefix menus might be interesting as well. Matu, Firstborn, that model, but that model is only for a certain level of, I think, upper middle class, upper class restaurant, right? So how replicable is that model? I'm not sure.
I will say the Ozempic thing is real. Went to dinner recently with our friend who's on Manjaro, and I was shocked at how little he ate. And this is like a guy who could put it down.
Yeah, guys, different thoughts on that. Whole other world of thoughts on that I won't get canceled by getting into.
I kind of wonder when I see these reports sometimes. It all feels like some of the stuff is like, I know you said the point of a report isn't to like unearth new shit necessarily, but I also feel sometimes it's so obvious if you're just like following general economic trends, some of these things. Like for example, consumer spending less. Yes, we're all spending less in general, right? So I wonder sometimes like, yeah, I'm sure there is value in doing reports that are industry only, but I think sometimes we fail to see how like all these industries are interconnected. Restaurants are treated in such a silo a lot of the time. And I feel like there's something to be said about like general small business health.
Probably. Yeah. I'm sure that report exists too, which includes restaurants in it. And by the way, I should say, like, it's not to say reports like this can't unearth or are not intended to unearth something new. It just so happens that I think food has been covered, I think, so relatively well that this one did not happen to, like, it has insights in it, but they're not new ones. I do think you're right that like restaurants both are and aren't in a silo. I think the broader economic trends, tariffs, rising supply chain costs, labor costs, etc., are impacting all industries in some way. For restaurants, I think because the sector was notoriously always thin margin, it just hits harder. And it also, frankly, like, yes, small businesses are really important, and it's good to have them, and they make communities more vibrant. But I think restaurants really have a different sort of role to play in making a city feel healthy and good. And when they're impacted negatively, it really hurts in a different way, which is why I will say the last thing I'll point out here, which is something we know and something that we hear, but felt good to see, like, just named, is the difference between consumer expectations and restaurant economics, meaning that across all themes that the study examined, restaurant operators described a widening gap between rising guest expectations and operational realities, with guests increasingly expecting convenience and an elevated experience and value simultaneously, while the restaurant is facing margin compression, cost volatility, and labor rigidity.
Yeah.
Right? Like that, especially from a consumer perspective, which is what we're coming at it from, like gut checking yourself on that, which I think we do on this podcast all the time, but like really being honest with ourselves and helping people sort of understand. And it makes total sense. As people's personal economics are constrained, they're going to want more bang for their buck. But the reality is the place you're going to get more bang for their buck and want a super specialized, hey, I'm out spending my precious dollar and all that. The place you're going to is also constrained, right? So how do we reconcile that?
I thought you were going to say that place doesn't exist. And I was like, it does exist. It's just in Cincinnati, Ohio. It doesn't exist in Los Angeles.
These places, they do. I think they do exist. LA is expensive. Maybe it doesn't exist in a true way because the price is so high, but like I think they do. If again, go back to Bill Esparza's interview with Bill Addison, just maybe have to be a little bit more open-minded as a consumer. You just do. That's not to say you can't, like, you want to get like scammed or get bad service or bad food. Like you're not excusing that, but like we have to all recognize that like this is not a fair environment for restaurants, and being a demanding consumer who's dissatisfied with restaurants that are attempting to deliver at their best just hurts everyone.
Yeah, guys, be a little less demanding, okay? Just demand less.
Chill out.
Well, we're going to link to the report in the show notes. I'll also link to the New School report because I think it was just as interesting. So definitely check both of those out. But Saul, before we get to our interview today, are you down for a quick round of Chef's Kiss Big Miss?
Always.
Here we go. Kelly Dobkin writes for Resi that Squirrel, the tiny Virgil Village cafe that rewired LA's breakfast brain back in 2012, is finally flipping the lights for dinner as February 19th. As a nighttime destination, Squirrel emerges as a distinctly LA bistro, familiar ingredients wildly unfamiliarly treated, layered with British Jewish roots, California seasonality, French technique, and the diverse palates of the kitchen crew. Expect crudo, tartare, chicken liver parfait, playful twists on classics, yes, even Caesar, collaborative mains with global influences, and a serious cocktail program balancing culinary nerdiness with fun. Same Squirrel DNA, just dressed for the evening crowd. Saul, is Squirrel's dinner an intriguing chef's kiss? Or who gives a fuck? This sounds like every other restaurant. Big miss.
I don't think it necessarily sounds like every other restaurant. I'm excited to go. Were you a squirrel girl back in the day? Were you squirreling?
The only time I went to Squirrel, I went to Squirrel like a couple of times, like everybody, right? But I wasn't like a fanatic or anything.
I went exactly once, I think, and it was cool.
Yeah, I mean,
I feel like I'm probably not in a rush to go for dinner. I'm curious, but it'll be one of those like a friend comes to town and it'll be like, oh yeah, like why not do that? Let's go check that out. I mean, we'll see how much it books up.
I'm definitely curious to try it out. There's a couple things that strike me about this. One, not a lot of people are making the like squirrel dinner joke, like girl dinner. Are you familiar with girl dinner?
Of course I am. Yeah.
Yeah. So guys, it's low-hanging fruit. Make that joke. And secondly, I was listening to Jessica Coslow's interview with Matt Rodbard on This Is Taste, who, by the way, will be in the Father Saul chair next week, I should say.
Super exciting.
Very exciting. But he basically asked her, like, what's it like to, like, basically just be followed around to this day by these, like, moldy jam allegations? And she was just, like, kind of like, yeah, it sucks, because they're still there. Does that still linger in your brain?
I mean, look, it's two things are true. One, I'd be lying if it doesn't, but not in a way that doesn't make me want to eat it.
Yeah.
Like, I just like the brand association is there, but I don't think there's still mold in the jam. And by the way, she's really owned it. Like, I'm an accountability boy here. I'm a big fan of that. And so, like, she was like, yeah, look, I like to go off the ball, and it happened. But that doesn't prevent me from whining. I don't think that there's, like, still mold there a decade later.
That is the softest dick superhero I've ever heard. Accountability boy.
Hey, no. Hard. Accountability is tough. You gotta be hard to take some accountability.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
He's the hero we need. He's the hero we need in these times.
Definitely. All right. Sounds like we're going to give this a chef's kiss. All right. Next one. Critic Elazar Sontag writes in the Washington Post that somewhere along the way, dinner out stopped feeling like dinner and started feeling like a TED Talk with table service. What was once charming, the occasional heartfelt story about a scallop or a family recipe, has curdled into a culture of rehearsed spiels, garnish instructions, and ingredient by ingredient lectures that drained the magic from the plate. Sontag argues that restaurants, nudged by Yelp, TikTok, and the fear of being misunderstood, have overcorrected into hyper-explanation, leaving diners little room for curiosity, confusion, or discovery. Saul, the menu spiel in modern dining, an overwrought big miss to Sontag's point, or a welcome chef's kiss to help us navigate the ambiguities of dining and even life itself?
I think he's really onto something here, man. I think there is something to this, and so I'm confused by how you frame the chef kiss big miss. I think this take is a chef's kiss. I do.
Yeah.
It normally does not bother me. Like, this feel is fine. If you're a restaurant critic and you're out all the time, I can imagine it really getting to you. There are certainly times it can feel like the service is not reading the table or reading the room, and like a conversation that we're having in the middle of all of a sudden gets waylaid because we need to hear a 5-minute like explanation of the entire menu. Sometimes I want it, but sometimes I don't, and I think it's pretty clear when, just with questions, right? Like if people have, like, it's one thing to explain the menu and how to order, that's fine. If you want to explain the entire concept of the restaurant and its history and what it's saying, like, maybe wait for prompting. Fine dining is accepted. I expect that more at fine dining because I think that's part of the experience. But like, I think it's kind of explained. It's everywhere now. Like, they have to like go through every single dish and explain what the dish is. When I'm like, I can read the menu. Actually, it's okay. So This is a rare, like, I'm not being anti-service here. I just think this practice, it doesn't need to change, but I think he's calling out something.
My favorite detail in the piece is when he was like, at a recent restaurant, the server said, "Chef recommends you squeeze the lime on the chicken wings."
Point to the lime.
But I think I have a solution for this, Saul. Do you take rideshare?
As rarely as possible, like Uber, Lyft. You mean? Yeah.
Yeah, Uber, Lyft. Right? When you're on Uber or Lyft, you now have an option to basically select how talkative you want your driver to be. You can ask them to be super talkative. You can ask them to be not talkative at all. I think when you're making a reservation for a restaurant, you should be able to select how much explanation you want from your waiters at the outset and how much you want to interact with them. On Resi, on Open Table, you can select, I want to know everything about my server. I want to know where they went to high school. I want to know if they've recently gone through a breakup. I want to know their blood type. Or you can select, I want them to shut the fuck up and leave me alone with my friends.
So I might be halfway there for you. I don't think servers should be required to tell you your blood type. Tell people their blood type, right? Wait, is that a real thing? I've never seen that on Uber Lyft. Like, you can you tell your driver to be talkative? That seems fucked up. You should just say the mood you're in.
I mean, it's not. I don't think you like say be talkative.
I just say like quiet preferred is what I see. Like, do you want to be like talkative or quiet? Yeah.
Yeah, it's more. Yeah, exactly. It's like I'm open to conversation or something.
Yeah. Your version sounded scary and dystopian and fucked up, but yeah, I guess it's fair. But I don't think you really need an option. It can be more personal than that. You can just be like, I mean, I don't know. Maybe it takes some friction out of the interaction, but like. I think the server can just ask, like, hey, do you want the details? And just like be honest. Sometimes I'm at a dinner with someone who likes to ask the fucking waiter every fucking question and crack jokes and be like the fucking stand-up comedian at the table and ask a million questions when I'm like, buddy, like, let's just get through the menu. So sometimes it is not the waiter's fault. Sometimes it do be your own people, as they say.
It do. The call is coming from inside the house on this podcast. Okay, we're giving this take a chef's kiss. Next one, LA Taco included tacos entre amigos on a recent roundup of eats, according to Ruben, because I can't find the article. This, of course, comes months after Father Saul himself has been banging the drum for people to go check out this taqueria at the corner of Vine and Melrose. Saul, your hard work as a tastemaker starting to pay dividends. A victorious chef's kiss or an it's about time big miss.
Go eat tacos entre amigos. Parking lot of pavilions on Vine. That's all I have to say.
There you go. Okay, we're giving this chef's kiss. Last one for you. Andrew Zimmern of Bizarre Foods fame writes on his Spilled Milk Substack, which, by the way, is very, very good, that pizza just dropped to 6th place in America, meaning that pizza is no longer the top cuisine in chain sales. Mexican surpassed it. Chicken is exploding. Burgers are still everywhere. And according to AZ, what actually matters is that Americans didn't actually stop loving pizza. They just stopped treating it as the automatic choice. He says this is a behavioral shift, not a trend, towards Asian food quietly winning weeknights. Dumplings, noodles, rice bowls, Korean fried chicken, delivery friendly, customizable. This is how food culture changes, he writes, not with a bang, with a Tuesday. Saul, Asian and Mexican food, especially Asian, dethroning pizza just as I stake my entire platform on it. An ill-timed big miss for your boy or an inevitable chef's kiss that's actually good for society.
Big miss for you. I knew it was over with pizza. I knew you shouldn't go back. Like look, you're getting plenty of engagement, it seems, with the pizza countdown, but pizza, when you did it, felt like it was the top of the mountain. It does not feel like the top of the mountain anymore.
No.
And it's a repeat. You should have done something else. I actually, that's my hot take. I'm happy for you to do pizza. I know it's like a return to
sentimental,
like home base. You've learned a lot over the past 5 years of countdowns. It's fun to bring that to the pizza countdown now with grades and ratings. Pizza just didn't excite me. Doesn't excite people anymore, man. Yeah, no, but credit to you. You've done the Mexican countdown, the taco countdown. You've done the noodles countdown, which is very Asian focused.
Yeah.
Dumpling countdown. I would love a dumpling countdown. A bowl countdown. Love me a bowl, sort of. Not really, actually, but
bowl countdown. No, we're never doing bowls.
It's not. Yeah, no. Don't do that.
Not those kinds of bowls, at least.
So big miss for you.
Fair.
Big miss for you, but
hey, that concludes the game. You won. Congratulations. You finally won one as you're about to get hitched. So you got a shitty Yelp review for us?
I was talking to Emily. So what I'm gonna say is this: I don't think I have one specifically, but what Emily and I have decided is that Emily will, going forward, write my shitty Yelp review for me to repeat onto the podcast.
She's like your court stenographer.
Because she thinks I do a bad job telling stories. Yeah, basically. She's like, she's right. I do a bad job telling stories. So she's like, I'm going to write it out for you, and you have to say what I've written. I don't know if we will follow through on this, but I like this idea as a new advent. I would love if your wife did this. I think it would be very funny. So how's that as an idea for some shitty Yelp review features?
I love that. I absolutely love it.
Because it's also a review. It's an actual review. Like, they can write the review for us. They are we are eventually reviewing ourselves. They should be reviewing us. That's the people who are impacted by our behavior one way or another.
They should decide what is shitty and what deserves a Yelp review. I agree with that.
Exactly.
This week, I mean, my one she signed off on this week, that's got to count for something.
It does.
So I mentioned my earlier brush with the law. Well, unfortunately, I had another occasion where I didn't quite get away as scot-free, okay? So it turns out I was driving home one day, probably to podcast with your sorry ass, and I happened to run a red light in Culver City. Now, I didn't...
Are you fucking public enemy number one in LA? You fucking disaster with a scumbag mustache? I can't believe...
I think this was during my mullet era, okay? So even more scumbaggy.
Even worse. You need to be brought to justice.
Well, basically what happened is I was getting the mail yesterday, and at the top of the pile was like the dreaded, envelope from Culver City Police Department. I'm like, oh fuck, what did I do now? So I open it up and I see that there is this, notice of a citation on the way, right, for running a red light. And I'm like, bullshit, there's no way, right? And I'm pissed off. I'm like really sad about it. I'm like disappointed in myself. And I tell my wife, tail between my legs. And then she's like, there's a video online of you're able to watch it. Now, my wife thinks that I am just like a slut for watching myself on camera.
You are.
And that's why I do all this stuff.
Yeah.
Like, that's why I do all the pizza reviews. And she just thinks I love watching myself. So when she said there's a video of this, I got a little twinkle in my eye. And I shit you not, I watched that video like 1,000 times.
It exists?
It exists. It's out there. It's online.
You haven't sent it? Okay, wait, send me the link. What are you doing?
I will. I'll send you the link. Also, the fun part is you can move the cursor so you can see if I actually beat the red light. It's close, bro. It's close. It's like photo finish.
Dude, they got you with red light VAR? That's so funny.
Yes. Yeah, they got me with red light VAR. It was so close. Honestly, I think maybe the tip of my car was just in front of where it needed to be. But I can pretty confidently say I didn't make it, unfortunately. I'm not going to beat the charges.
That's so funny. Yeah, send me that link. I want to see that.
What do you think? Me being so obsessed with myself that I watched the video of myself getting a red light.
That is that is pretty bad. That's a 2-star. We're used to it. We've seen worse. But no, I want to hear the story as written by your wife and rated by your wife.
That's good.
Forward.
Yeah. She's got to write them. She's got to write them.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Great job by you little bachelor. I can't wait to see you become an honest man in just a couple days here. But we'll be back right after the break with the founders of MVA Wines, and you're going to learn a whole lot about them in just a moment.
Ooh.
Dear listener, we got a killer interview for you right now, but before we get into it, I wanted to tell you a story of how it came about. A few weeks ago, a guy named Tito slid into my DMs, and if you run a food podcast, that usually means one of three things: a PR pitch, a scam, or someone trying to sell you something. So when he reached out about sponsoring the show, I assumed this was going to be a pretty straightforward wine club ad based on the name, MVA.wine. 50-minute call, promo code, done. But then we started talking, and somewhere between we blind taste 50 to 60 wines at a farmhouse in Tuscany, and we only choose 6 unanimous votes required, I realized this wasn't a logistics business like most wine clubs. It was a curation obsession, and that's before I even learned about Laurent Vernes, the founder. Before this, Laurent built something called Tablet Hotels. It was one of the original boutique hotel discovery platforms, and the whole premise of it was taste, curation, filtering the world down to only what was worth your time. Independent hotels only too, I should add. He built that into a global brand, and instead of starting another scale-at-all-costs tech company, he decided to go all in on his real passion of wine. Not mass wine, not distribution deals, but the same philosophy that powered Tablet. Reject most of it, obsess over the details, and build something for people who care. MVA rejects 90% of the wines they taste. That's crazy. They sometimes become the only US buyer for a tiny winemaker producing a handful of cases somewhere in an obscure part of Europe. This is the craziest part to me. Membership is capped at 600 people ever, not as a gimmick, but because the wines literally don't exist at scale. What really hooked me though wasn't the exclusivity, it was the intention. In a world where everything is growth, volume, expansion, everybody wants to build $1 billion business that they can sell to Nabisco. They're building a community around wine. So instead of just reading you a sponsor script, and don't worry, there may be some sponsor scripts in the future, I wanted to understand why anyone would structure a wine business this way and whether that level of curation actually changes the experience. If you listen to this podcast and you've heard like our episodes on Keto or Vespertine, even our LA Food Pod Awards that we did at the end of 2025, I think one thing you'll remember is that Saul and I always talk about how, yeah, the food can be great, but it always comes down to the people and the memories, right? It always comes down to the experience whenever you're at one of these places. And I think that Tito and Laurent really get that, and they're trying to like infuse that ethos into MVA.wine. This is my conversation with MVA founder Laurent Verns and partner Tito Malega, and if by the end you're thinking, okay, I kind of want in, stick around because there's a little something waiting for LA Food Podcast listeners. Thanks for listening. Dear listener, I'm very excited about today's guests. Today's guests are interesting for a few reasons. We're joined by Laurent Verns and Tito Malega of MVA.wine. First, yes, full transparency, they're partnering with the show, but second, and more importantly, this is one of those things where when somebody explained the concept to me, my immediate reaction was, wait, why isn't everyone doing wine like this? Because most wine clubs, I think you'll hear today, feel like logistics businesses, discounts, allocations, moving inventory, but MVA feels weirdly different, obsessive even. Laurent, let me start with you. I'm going to start with something a little bit provocative, okay? Most wine clubs, if we're being honest, send people wine they need to move. You claim to do the opposite. What does that actually mean?
No, we have something in common, which is convenience, the fact that you receive the wines to your home. But I think most wine clubs, there is a lot of consistency in the fact that all they do is that. What's the part that's missing and that I would want to see in a wine club, which is why we created this one, is quality, curation, the safety of exploring things you don't know, knowing that the quality is going to be there all the time. It's going to be different styles, things that surprise you, things that you may be a little familiar with, but it will stretch your experience with knowing that the quality is always going to be there. And that's something that I would argue other wine clubs don't do. I mean, we can get into, if you want, the reasons for that. It's not just because they don't want to. There are also structural reasons for that. Everybody says they have great customer service, and we all know that's not the case. And in the case of wine clubs, because unlike restaurants, we all know there are some good restaurants and bad restaurants, but wine clubs pretty much all share the same characteristics, and they are missing the exploration portion, I would argue. Either they go through a distributor in the US, which is also an importer, and the way you deal with distributors if you're selling wine is that they will give you the good stuff. They know which is the good stuff. Only if you take a bunch of the not so good stuff. So if you have to go through a distributor, that's the deal you're getting from them. We import our wines directly from the producer. So our scouting universe is every wine in the world. And when we pick a wine, we have the ability, we have the licenses to import the wines directly, so we don't need to deal with that commercial situation. Some other wine clubs, they take in wine in bulk, like literally tanks. And I think intuitively everybody understands that the wines that are packaged that way, at the source, are not the wines that are worth bottling. The vineyards would sell the grapes, and then whatever happens. But if they thought those grapes were conducive to making some great wine, they would bottle that wine themselves. So they're stuck structurally, and then we created a structure that enables us to truly curate, and pick whatever wine we think is great in the world. We have that freedom, and most of them, they just don't.
Now, can I ask, is that a problem that you saw in the wine club world, that you were like, somebody should do something about this?
Yeah, I mean, to the point where, I hate to call it a wine club. I know technically it's a wine club because you get every 2 months that case of 6 bottles.
Yeah.
But we call it a collective because, I don't like the association. It may, be a bit rude to the other wine clubs, but that's the truth. Mm-hmm. I mean, the other reason why we call it a collective is that we want to involve, because we have this freedom to pick any wine we want to involve our clients in the scouting. Because these people are passionate, they love to explore, they all have their list on Excel or whatever of the wines they discovered during wine tastings, whatever. And we want them to share that with us. So everybody benefits from these suggestions, but then we can add that to our scouting, to and contact these wineries and ask them to send us samples, and then they participate in the blind tasting. So this involvement, we want to engage our clients, and that's something that's I think truly unique. I don't think anybody.
Do you mean the members that sign up to this get to actually suggest the wines that you go out? Okay, I didn't know that. So let's talk a little bit about that selection process. I understand that there's a blind tasting involved, so that you're not just playing favorites with the wineries that you are friends with. It sounds a little intense.
Yeah. Now, in fact, so far, we are at the beginning of this adventure. And that's the most fun I have, that blind tasting. So we do it in a farmhouse in Tuscany called Maison Verne, so we do it around. The last time was about 6 months ago, actually, because we found 12 wines that everybody loved. So we had to skip the next blind tasting. But the way it works is that we get these samples from the wines that have been pre-selected, scouted. And every winery we explain to them the principles, blah, blah, blah. And then they each send us two bottles of the specific cuvée that we liked. Because every winery makes, 5 to 20 cuvées. But there is typically 1 or 2 that we like, or that are, kind of affordable. So we get all these boxes. It's like overwhelming. I have pictures of the boxes. We unpack the wines. We actually split typically it's around 60. We split that into 4 groups of about 15 wines, because through experience, we've realized you cannot really taste more than 15 wines in a day. Typically it's in the afternoon.
Right.
In one afternoon, you cannot possibly taste 15 wines. There is a point where you just can't tell anymore, because we do.
Because you're not spitting it out, or what? Just because your palate is only.
Yeah, the palate, it gets worn out,
Yeah.
And we eat stuff, we drink water, and I personally, I find it difficult to spit out a really good wine. I'm like, is there something more to this wine? That guilty as charged.
Fair.
But so, whatever, a friend of mine who's participating to every single one of them, one of the co-founders, dear friend, he is religious about spitting. I must say, I struggle sometimes. When it's really good, it's like, there must be something else to this wine that I want to experience.
No, it takes some real, real discipline.
It takes, Anyway, we split that into 15 groups of 15 wines, and then we basically wrap. So far, we've been wrapping the bottles in aluminum foil to hide everything we could hide. Obviously, we cannot hide the color. And then we put a number on each bottle, and then we on some spreadsheet we have which wine it is, which number, and so on. And then we start. We go around the table, and the rules are simple. By the way, it's besides the 3 regulars, it's all winemakers. Now it's the guys who made the wines that we had selected before.
Okay.
So it becomes this kind of rolling community building of winemakers who make wines we think are great.
It sounds like one hell of a day.
They're not. There is no insecurity in these people. They know what they like.
Yeah.
They don't care about showing off what they know. It's not a game where, oh, I'm recognizing this and blah, strawberry. None of that. The rules are the following. You have a sip. All we need you to say is yes, no, or maybe. And the question is, would you be very grateful to MVA if they introduce you to this wine? Yes, no, or maybe.
Yeah.
And we go around the table, no reaction, no judgment. We just go around the table. That's all you're allowed to say. And then when we've been around the table, then you can talk about it. And it's kind of interesting. So because, the winemakers, what I discovered, they can tell how the wine was made, especially if something was added to the wine to correct the default.
So they can reverse engineer it just by tasting it?
They the grapes is often easy to recognize.
Yeah.
It's not like a sommelier contest. It's more like, is this wine honest? Mm-hmm. Because for great wines, 90% of the work is in the vineyard, right? So they only add stuff at the end just to correct something that they don't think the market is going to like, or there is some defect. But they can tell, if the wine has been corrected or manipulated, or we call that intervention, right?
Yeah.
So they can tell that. So they basically, when they say no and everybody else kind of like the wine, they say no. And the reason they say no is because, they added this tartaric acid or something. There are like 200 to 500 additives that you can use to make wines. I mean, if you go to these websites, they even tell you, you can make your own recipe for wine. So, in fact, the majority of wines are produced that way.
I believe it.
So people realize, it's not just pesticides in the vineyards. It's also, in the cellar, adding things at the end. So it's crazy.
Yeah.
And what you want is it's something that's really, all the love happened in the vineyard, and then the grape is as good as it can be. And obviously it depends on the climate and of that year and so on. But something that's a true, honest representation of the work in the vineyard. And of course, there is a lot of artistry in the cellar, but that artistry shouldn't rely on, let me add this little chemical here and there and all this sulfite. And it shouldn't rely on that if the wine is well made.
That's interesting.
So they can tell that. So to cut a long story short, I'm sorry about it's an exciting time with these people. It's always, it's not just because we are spitting out wine. But we only pick the wines that get unanimous yeses. And when there is an outlier,
wow.
So if there is everybody says yes except one person, then we go back to this one at the end, which is why it takes so long.
Wait. So this is like a jury process. You need a unanimous selection. How many people are there in one sitting?
8.
Oh, that feels like it could take a long time.
It takes a long time. It takes the whole afternoon.
Wow.
And 4 days in a row. It's exhausting, literally. But it's like the wonderful form of exhaustion, but it's exhausting.
So you go through all this trouble to find these wines, and you can tell that it's, you're doing it for the love of the game. And then you capped membership of MVA at 600 people. Now, in LA terms, that's like one Erewhon parking lot.
Yeah.
You're a new business. It seems to me like a little counterintuitive because most businesses are chasing scale. Why would you artificially limit the growth of MVA?
It's not artificial. It's not artificial. I mean, there is a structural reason, which is that these wines typically, they're small batch productions. So it's difficult to get a hold of a large number of bottles of any of these wines, basically. That's the main reason.
Got it.
Then then you have to ask yourself, what the hell, you're creating a business that's capped at it's like a bonsai kind of thing. Doesn't make much sense. but it's not like, number one, it's not like biggest is the best. That for sure, in terms of business too. But also you can grow in different ways. You can add layers. You can add premium layer. There are many ways to grow a business without growing the size of the audience.
That makes sense.
That was one of my first questions that I asked Laurent when we had dinner in New York, the first time that we met in person. And, the answer, like he said, is very simple. There's only so much of this wine, so there's only so much we can serve. And, it's really difficult to scale quality. when you have like these winemakers that are like truly families, working on small plots of land that they might have had for 3, 4, 5 generations, we're super, super careful about what goes into every single bottle. So 600 feels like a magical number. And also it helped us create more of a sense of community, actually a real community. Because, our hope is that when we have 600 members, they all get to know each other. They all get to connect with each other. They all get to suggest wines to each other. It doesn't have to be our wines. It had to be like the best things they can do to help each other find beautiful things in our life, which we all know we need help finding beautiful things in life, post-pandemic world at all. So, 600, it feels like still a community, and it's just definitely all the wine there is. When these bottles are gone, they're gone forever. They're never to be repeated. That's it. It's just going to be a new vintage, a new thing. And that's where we are.
So it's scarcity, not for scarcity's sake. It's scarcity because these wines literally don't exist at scale.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it sounds like, from a Los Angeles perspective, hell of a lot of bottles that we can't usually get here.
Yeah, for sure. And not just Los Angeles, New York, anywhere. Difficult to find anywhere. Yeah. I mean, I think, in Europe, everybody knows that the wines of this type rarely leave Europe. Because typically the local market, just swallows them, and there is no need to find exporters.
They're done before they can find an exporter. Yeah,
they're done.
So I want to zoom out a little bit here, because Laurent, before you started this venture, you built Tablet Hotels, which at its core was also curation, right? Now, can you tell us a little bit about that venture and what the psychological itch here is for you? Because this feels like the same brain just applied to wine.
Yeah, it's true. So what are the core? What do these two things have in common besides the word curation? I think it's a belief that the world is partly it's my family history. I grew up in a small retail business, in a small shop, and small shops have been under constant attack from big businesses creating franchises and stuff like that. So although I started, I didn't continue in that business. I did a bookstore for a while, but I didn't continue as a retail shop owner on the footsteps of my parents. But I've always felt like I needed to defend these people from the big corporate marketing machines. And the problem I have with the big corporate stuff is that it creates a generic world where the personality and the authenticity disappears. Yeah. And that's, so I want to, the purpose of the curation is to help people see beyond the brands, that there are a lot of a lot of products or services. In this case, first it was the hotels, now it's the wine, that are actually of superior quality.
So Tablet Hotels, for people who aren't familiar with it, it was a curation of like boutique hotels that weren't associated with the big brands, right?
It was hotels. It was hotels, not just boutique, because just like not all organic wines are good. Yeah. It's not because it's organic that it tastes good. Right. But it's better if it's organic, because you're not going to be poisoned. But for hotels, I had traveled a lot, and I continue to travel a lot, and I knew. There was a phase in the development of the global hotel industry where the chains raised the standard for in places where the standards were maybe not as great. But even like 40 years ago, the best hotels were never the chain hotel. Mm-hmm. They were always the independent local initiative, because hotels are Hotels are at a hub of culture, of local culture. The best hotels. Travel is about culture. The best hotels are a hub of local culture. The chains can never do that. Yeah, basically. And it's kind of that's a parallel. So you get these independent people who create these things of beauty. And how do we help these people? How do we help people find that, because it's superior to the generic offer? So that's the mission. But what we do too is we help these people to survive and to make an honest living and maybe thrive, maybe do it again. So that's kind of the core mission, the mission that's at the core of both ventures, basically.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, I will add though, in parallel to the tablet experience, because Laurent and I talk about, obviously I'm very curious about the whole experience, so we talk a lot about this. And one of the things Laurent always tells me is like, undoubtedly, some of the best tablet properties came through a guest. It's not something that we went and seek out and found. It's things that a guest has sent us, and that's kind of like at the heart of, what we were talking about earlier, the community and our members being able to say, look at this wine, look at this winemaker, look at this one place. It all comes from that experience and the heart of what Laurent built with tablets.
Yeah, and it was actually unprompted in the case of tablets. So it was because people could see the sincerity in the mission that they wanted to contribute. And and one of the things I could never, it became a big business. So it was there was so much technology involved, and I could never get. I have had some when I left. I had some unfinished business, which I am trying to put into this new business, which is to actually give credit to the people who participate in the scouting, who give us these suggestions, make it public. So because it's actually, I hope we'll see what happens, but by the time we get this critical mass of members, the scouting will be made so much easier for us by the fact that we just rely on our members to tell us which wines we should put in the process.
Our members and our winemakers, right? Like the winemakers are at the table there.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, when we look and we said our members, every time that we are in Tuscany, this beautiful farmhouse, we bring 2 members with us, pretty much all expenses paid, airfare, lodging taken care of. So they have that say, at the table, but it's also a way for us to reward those who are really active and contributing to the community, which hopefully will feed this kind of feeding mechanism of new ideas, new wines, new finds. So that's just one more way we do it.
All right, wait. You just buried the lead here. If I become a member, there's a chance I get to go to Tuscany?
More than one.
Yeah, if you become really active in helping us find good wines, yes.
Wow. Okay.
Yes.
We reserve 2 seats, and if you're a member, you're automatically entered to go to every one of these beautiful selection weeks that we have. And the second seat,
it's based on your activity, your contribution to the collective.
That makes sense. The more active you are, the more it makes sense. You're also going to get more out of that experience by going, right? So,
and you're probably going to be, a more somebody we should listen to in terms of which one.
So, Laurent, when you exited Tablet, because now if you go on look at Tablet's website, it looks a lot like other hotel finding sites, right?
Yeah.
Like the Expedias, the Booking.coms of the world, but.
Yeah.
Did you automatically know wine was your next move, or how did you fall into that?
So I have a few passions. So for sure, travel was has been almost a therapy for me. Not just almost; it's been my therapy. And wine, I wouldn't call it a therapy because it's dangerous to use it as a therapy. But it was, it's been a lifelong passion. It's in a way just like what those things having the way it became inevitable is that there was a moment when you scale, as Tito was saying, it's difficult to retain that originality and you see it, you see that struggle that Tablet has these days to maintain that soul. And trust me, they're trying. There was a moment when in the business when it was becoming really all about the numbers, and I needed something to feed my soul. So I started dabbling into champagne, which is something I love. I'm not the only one, but I have a pretty good idea of the kind of champagne I love. Unlike wine, which is more, to me, wine is more about exploration and different. Champagne, champagne is more like a formula, and I know what I'm looking for in a champagne. Mm-hmm. So I set out to find somebody who could make champagne like that, and I found someone, and then we partnered, and we kind of released the champagne, and I organized a blind tasting actually with a friend of mine who was at the time was the editor-in-chief of Saveur magazine.
Oh yeah.
In the taste kitchen, in the taste kitchen or test kitchen, and with a bunch of sommelier from New York hotels. And I know the game was, okay, bring your favorite champagne under $100, and we'll do a blind tasting. We'll see who wins. And I planted my champagne in there because I wanted to see whether
how it stacks up.
whether my taste is relevant to anyone or it's just my. And it finished second. So
that's not bad.
And then I know, but almost by implication, it was sold. So anyway, so it became like, I mean, this wine thing, I could extend that to the wine thing because everybody's lost. It's even more complicated to find a good wine than it is to find a good hotel. At least with hotels, you have the pictures. Mm-hmm. And then you can tell a lot from the pictures. With wine, you have nothing. People tell you something, I think the need is more pronounced, in fact, for some.
Yeah.
You have a bunch of people writing, curate, in newspapers. Everybody has their own wine expert. Fine, but it's so complicated. Everybody is lost. So I thought, okay, this is one area where I can really, if I can find a process to help people keep exploring, as opposed to what most people do, which is to revert back to what they know.
Yeah.
Because they're tired of trying something they don't like. So they just keep drinking the same stuff, which is a shame because the beauty of that strange universe where we're all lost is that there are discoveries to be made. You can fall in love with something. So how can I help make that happen? So it became like I felt like this was a worthy mission.
That's really cool. I mean, I feel like the art of discovery is being completely lost these days. Like with the internet, I'm guilty of this. I literally have an Instagram channel where I tell people where to go and eat, right? Because people want to be sure where they're spending their dollars. But wine is one of those things, right? I'm sure you're familiar with the app Vivino, right?
Same thing. And, and we're all, with restaurants, I guess, it's a good thing to have the place where they know you and they treat you better, and we all want that. But you also you always want to try the next thing because you want. Yeah. Because if you're always going to do the same thing, you might as well die. What's the point?
Yeah, I agree.
What's the point of repeating the same experience over and over again?
It's true. No, I love that philosophy.
Life is about exploration, development. Exploration.
Yeah, I haven't been to my favorite hotel, for example, in probably 15 years. And it's my favorite place on earth. And it's a place where, when they say, welcome, Mr. Melega, like all the worries of the world disappear off my shoulders. But the truth is, why? Because my wife at some point made a very smart decision. She said, we always come here. From now on, every trip we take is going to be a different place for us and for the kids. And because of that, our lives and our taste and the things that we have experienced has exponentially exploded. Do I miss it? Yes. Will I go back there one day? Yes. But, wine is a little bit like that. If you're always drinking the same cab or the same Pinot, at some point, it's like, really, how much more are we missing out on? And
it kills the fun, yeah.
And that's what we're anti. The anti-missing out is really about discovery, exploration, fun. It's worth saying that, be very clear. Our wines are not for like the super serious collector. Our wines are to be open with a friend right away at dinner, share the story, talk about, Jan and Fifi, our winemakers in the south of France, who met in New York but came from Burgundy. And because they're from Burgundy, they're making a Chardonnay with Burgundy grapes as opposed to growing the grapes in where they are. So all of those things really matter. And wine kind of is one of those things that feels better, tastes better. You remember it differently according to who you are, where you are, the moment, the occasion, and all of that plays into everything that we do, for our members.
Let's double click on that a little bit because I want to hear who this is for, right? Because from everything I've gathered, it doesn't necessarily sound like it's for the complete wine beginner necessarily, nor is it really kind of like a flex culture thing. Like it's not really just like, oh, I'm part of MVA.
Oh, no.
Like it's like a badge of acceptance. It sounds like it's for a person who really wants to learn, get stuck in, and like build community. But how do you envision the perfect member?
So I just want, I can say who it's not for to start. No, it's like Tito was talking about the serious wine collector. Why is it not for the serious wine collector? Because a serious wine collector doesn't drink the wine, that wine. What they do is either show it off, or speculate on the value of the wine. I mean, there are super sophisticated sites where you can see the trading value of the most expensive, famous wines. Why is there a trading value? It's because people are not drinking it. It just they're trading it. It's like a stock. It's not about.
It's like an NFT.
Yeah. So that's not for. And these people actually may drink some wine anyway, but probably not these wines, because these wines they speculate on these wines. I mean, so when somebody has this kind of crazy good cellar packed with famous wines and tells me, "Oh, let's go to see my cellar," it's like, yeah, sure. I'm like, yeah, one rule, I can open any bottle I want in that cellar and we drink it together. Otherwise, I'm not interested. I'm not interested in you showing off I know these wines. I don't need to see them in your cellar. What difference does it make to me?
That's really funny.
No difference. So I think so it's for people who, so is it for beginners? I think the only problem, I think it should be, because it would be a good way to discover wine. But, I think the problem with beginners is that often they say, oh, I don't know much about wine. They don't trust their own taste.
Yeah.
And in fact, you should trust your own taste. There is nothing wrong. It will evolve. It will become more maybe sophisticated because you're exposed to more things. Because maybe the first one you try you don't like, but you're not sure you shouldn't like it. But so that's the problem with beginners. They don't trust their own taste yet.
Yeah.
And in fact, I find women trust their own taste more than men. Men are more about status. Women are like, I like it, I don't like it. They don't care about the status thing. Guys are more like, this is a Pinot Noir from Willamette Valley, blah, blah, blah. Do you know about Willamette Valley?
Now that you say that, there's definitely a difference between my wife and I when we go wine tasting. She definitely trusts her taste way more than I do.
I've noticed that, it came to me actually quite recently. I realized that, so it's for people who trust their own taste, and the people who are like, adventurers, they love to explore. I mean, it's not everyone, people will enjoy experiences. So, I mean, it seems that this is developing as a market, people used to buy products. Now they are more into experiences. So drinking wine is an experience, and drinking wine you don't know is an even more potentially rewarding experience.
Yeah, yeah.
To go back to the travel metaphor, I used to say you should never go back. Let's say you have a wonderful experience in some exotic place with probably something you shared with someone else, and it's part of what made it great. A whole bunch of things made it great. The hotel, probably part of it, or not. Don't go back. Don't try to replicate that experience. It won't work. It won't work.
It's so true. It's like when people go somewhere on vacation and they decide to move there.
Exactly. Now we could go on with the metaphors on this, but basically somebody who's into having new experiences, and who's like culturally curious, like people who've traveled, people who know that there is stuff out there that is worthy of discovery. People like that, basically.
I love that. Adventurous people. Now, speaking of people and speaking of culture and community, I understand that there's an ambition to do more than just send people wine. Like there's also going to be some in-person events hopefully happening. I've heard of wine-fi sessions. Can you tell me a little bit about that and how you hope to build actual community through this? Yeah, so I believe the idea of virtual communities, it's obviously we've been living in that world for like a couple of decades now, but often the in-person aspect is missing, and I mean, in fact, that virtual community thing is only increasing the loneliness of people, because it's taking the time from having in-person interactions. And so I think wine is obviously something you share in person. I mean, also there are some virtual tastings, but no, I don't think. I mean, I'm not for that. Oh no, I did one during COVID, and it was not great. So I think wine is definitely an amazing opportunity to share and to connect. And so one of the
the exit from tablet gave me the ability to do something about if I ever fell in love with a location, and I fell in love with that place with Valdorcia, which is this valley in Tuscany. I just fell in love with that place. I used to be seeking like the most obscure, out of the way places in the world, and then here I am falling in love with so Valdorcia, where the Etruscans were like 25 centuries ago. Whatever. It was that's I guess it's evidence that despite my snobbery about traveling, I was sincere in my love, because I fell in love, which was kind of the opposite of what I was always talking about.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it's a beautiful location. The farmhouse has incredible views, so it's really conducive to just being, actually. And it's something, and it so happens that Valdorcia is not a wine growing valley, but on one side there is Montalcino.
Oh yeah.
Which is where they make Brunellos, and on the other side it's Montepulciano, where they make the Vini Nobile di Montepulciano. So two very kind of I would say prestigious wine growing regions in Italy. So it's a good location for wine too, probably not by coincidence, but so I think with that location, that place, there is the potential of developing experiences around the experience of wine and other things, food, wine, and I think it would be it used to, that small place was run as a hotel, and strangely, it's one of these kind of strange loops in cycles in life. I don't know how you call them, but it was one of the, in fact, perhaps the most popular country place on tablet in Tuscany.
No way. That's funny.
Yeah, because it was not as obvious rustic. It was not like obvious rustic farmhouse. Like you live like in the 15th century. Oh, it's so cool. It's like, no, it was like a very minimalistic, to the credit of the previous owner, who's become a friend, and the views were crazy. The view is just like, you cannot avoid spending 2 hours every evening watching the sunset. It's just it's just riveting. I cannot go to a restaurant in the summer until like 9:30, which is after the sunset, and then at least half an hour. I cannot start cooking until 9:30. I mean, it's like, so anyway, it's something I'd like to share. I'd like to make, I'd like to combine the wines and that location to create experiences for people to connect with each other.
And we're already doing that, obviously, through the tasting weeks. That's really the beginning of it. But not everybody can go to Italy, sadly.
No.
Right? So we need to bring some of that feeling over here. And we know that, we talked about this earlier, it's very hard to know what a wine is just by looking at a picture online. It's not like a hotel where you see pictures, you get an idea, unless you taste it. So we're coming up with experiences and opportunity for people to taste the wines, having on their glass, across a friendly face, in a nice evening conversation. So to that effect, we had 2 programs that we're launching this year. One of them is like the NBA Supper Club series, where we team up with like local supper clubs, not just in LA or Brooklyn, but other places around the country, to have like these, beautiful, wonderful semi-pair dinners, where we just gather together to have a great time, enjoy and experience what the NBA wine experience, promises. So that's one of them. That allow us to team up with like small restaurants, hopefully that are a little bit out of the way, that feel found, right? Like our winemakers and our wines and our grapes feel found, right? They're like off the beaten tourist wine map, right? So that allow us to collaborate with other like minds, like, chefs, supper clubs, small restaurants, small places, unusual spaces. Maybe it's an art gallery, so on and so forth, which really adds to the fact that we're different.
Yeah.
We're just not that wine club that is going to send you the Chard and the Pinot every month, and that's it. It's really like a whole kind of uncharted way of living, lifestyle.
And we might be expecting this in Los Angeles as well?
Yes. Matter of fact, we have one coming in March 12th.
Amazing.
And that will be our second, dinner in town, and there's more in the plans. And then there are experiences like you mentioned Wine 5, and what is Wine 5?
Wow.
again, in the spirit of let's not just go and rent another stuffy room in the back of a restaurant with a white tablecloth and 6 glasses with the 4 forks that some people will be afraid to pick the wrong one at the wrong time. It's not about this. It's not about the stuffiness. It's about enjoying, right? So Wine Find is a series that actually brings together incredible, beautiful analog sound and wine. So we're pairing now sound and music to the wine. This is the way that we will to the dish, but it's done in a place and an environment where it's more intentional listening, phones away, an hour and a half with a great selector, and really hearing the story of why this wine, why this music, why this winemaker, why this artist, why this track, why this bottle. And so at the end of the day, you have had 3 beautiful wines in the same way that you would have in a wine flight someplace else, but in a very unique, different MBA, kind of way. So that's something else that we're working to get out. And it's just a different way, an uncharted way. We like to use the word uncharted, to give people new memories and new experiences and beautiful things, in life at a moment that feels like we need it more than ever, right? 2026.
So if I'm an adventurous, wine-inclined LA Food Podcast listener, where can I go to learn more or even sign up?
MVA.wine.
That's super easy. MVA.wine, people. Pleasure getting to know you both and also to learn more about this. And Tito, I'm so glad you reached out because honestly, we talk all the time on this podcast about how food is great. You can have the best cooked meal ever, but it's really all about the experience and the people that you go with and the story along the way. And you guys really embody that ethos with MVA. And I can't wait to see what a community this becomes over time. So,
well, there's a reason, Luca, why we reach out to you, and it's because the way that you guys do things is honest, is raw, is for the most part really unedited, and it's not about finding, again, those beautiful uncharted places around LA that people can go and enjoy. So we felt there was a kinship there. One thing that we haven't talked, we talked about uncharted, we talked about how we do things different, we talk about discovery and beauty, and we talk about how our members are probably going to be the best and biggest source of finding the best finds, so much so that we have a name for them, and they're called Vine Finders. So when you become a Vine Finder, you become part of this, glorious experience that we've been talking about. And I'm sure that there's probably a lot of hidden Vine Finders in the audience. So we thought we'd do something a little bit nice. So we have set up a Founders Prize for those who want to join us today as they're listening to this. And if you go to MVA.wine, subscribe. When you see coupon code, just put LA Food in there. We'll know where you come, and you're going to have a great welcome into the family. $50 off the first collection. And the code is LA Food.
The code is LA Food. You heard it here. $50 off your first collection. Don't worry, dear listener. We'll be talking about it in the next episodes as well. But in the meantime, Laurent, Tito, thank you for joining us.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Luca.
Thank you, Luca.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the LA Food Podcast. Thanks to our guests for making the time for us. As always, we'll be back with another epic episode next week, but if you're looking for me in the meantime, you can find me on TikTok, Instagram, Thread, YouTube, even our website at the LA Countdown. You can also find us on Instagram at It's Acquired Taste and at acquiredtastemedia.com. If you like what you heard here today, dear listener, please consider going to wherever you listen to podcasts and leave us a 5-star rating or review, even a follow. That really helps us. It means the world to us. Thank you so much in advance.